Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, October 3rd, County Council Justice and Safety Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller. Public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
In your packets, we have the minutes of the September 19th meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have no issues that were referred to the committee. And for discussion purposes, I thought it about time to bring the sheriff in, see what he has seen from his eyes, and the Diversion Center folks, and to see what they have seen from their eyes. I think their thoughts and input are important for us to get a feel of where they're at and where they would like to go. So to start off, Sheriff.
Good afternoon, Councilman and the members of the committee. I'm here to give you an update on the first 77 days here and some of the major functions in the County Sheriff's Department. So I did prepare a presentation for us to walk through just to give you some insight, some overview, and then obviously I'm open for questions, but I think it's okay that I present you kind of an overview here. So we'll just go forth. It's my 77-day briefing. I'll start with we brought some additional staff and talent onto the command staff of the Sheriff's Department. Obviously, any organization needs solid management and leadership in place, and there was obviously a need to diversify some of the talent pool. So I think that during my time here, I found a significant amount of quality individuals throughout all four of the operations. And they did terrific work keeping the ship afloat and doing great work. A lot of great work has been done. However, there was a need to go ahead and make sure that we had some people on board that would help us carry the ball forward and add to that talent pool that was already existing. So, but on Special Assistant Jim Rapecki, he was a chief in a couple of cities, police departments, over 45 years in law enforcement, so a proven leader there. He was committee chair of the Cuyahoga County Emergency Services Advisory Board Law Enforcement Committee. So I had a strong relationship with him there in my previous life, and certainly his input in law enforcement operations, funding, and collaboration in Northeast Ohio is known throughout the region. So certainly a quality individual there. And a key partner for major events. Probably the most recent one was the presidential debate that we had there. Actually, the most recent one was the Jewish Federation's performance by the opera at Severance. So that took quite the security footprint. So there's many others we're not listing here. As an example, when he was at his previous, at University Circle, he sent a couple of bicycle officers to join the multi-agency bicycle team, and that was very beneficial. So certainly a strong background in partnership and collaboration. And he has extensive grant and collective bargaining negotiation experience from those various arenas that he's certainly worked in. And that's an area we thought that certainly needed some shoring up, particularly on the grant side. And I know we have specialists there, but the grant side is obviously strong for us. And having the amount of various collective bargaining agreements in the Sheriff's Department, I thought that was prudent. Warden Jeremy Everett joins us, comes with over a quarter of a century of law enforcement and corrections experience. Not only on the operations side, but on the administration side, which is significant. He's experienced law enforcement and corrections professional, not only at the county level in several different counties, but also at the state level. So having that perspective and that depth and that experience to operate within state guidelines, state facilities, inspections, and all that was certainly critical. He served on the Corrections Planning Board and Reentry Coalition. Oh, and today, the issues we have with opiates, that was good to have that background. There's much more to his background, but I just kind of took some of the highlights which are really pertinent to our position and where we are today, and which certainly contributed to his selection. And he optimized many of these major functions in facilities that he was in charge of before coming here. Many of those kind of parallel things that we're doing here. We're already on the 12-hour shifts. Obviously, there's addiction recovery is a big deal for us. Privatized commissary, and that's something that obviously we're going through. You know all about Keith, so something that we've done. And reducing meal costs is a whole nother discussion for another meeting, but it's pertinent in today's day and age, and it's important that he has some experience in that. And increasing technology, development of technology, and that's something I'll touch on here in a minute when we get to the jail, but I thought that was really important that someone have the experience in how you deploy technology into a correctional setting, how you leverage it, and how you maximize it to optimize our service delivery. So I thought that was prudent. Chief Deputy Aaron Reese comes with over about 3 decades of law enforcement experience at the county level, state level, municipal level. He was the OIC of a very high-performing homicide unit at the Cleveland Division of Police. That's just something in the last couple of years they've really skyrocketed, and it's all thanks to his involvement in the Public Safety Partnership Program. So successfully collaborates disparate stakeholders, brings them together. In his roles at his previous employers, not just with the Cleveland Police, but with the Ohio Investigative Unit, the Ohio Attorney General's Crime Task Force, the OCDF Task Force, that's Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. He had a lot of experience in bringing additional partners together, and that's a skill set that not everybody has. The ability to bring those together just for a common mission. Everyone has something different. It could be a state park officer, it could be a transit officer, it could be a state trooper, but to bring them together and focus them on one mission, that's truly a skill set, and he certainly possesses that. The PSP partnership we heard me talk about in a snapshot, it's about 30 cities throughout the country. It's probably 37 now. Started a lot lower, started with 10. And when we embarked on that at the Cleveland Police, the good Sarge at that time made sure to be front and center when we had the assessments and was critical in deploying many of the strategies that we changed and in truly making a transformation of that unit. So that's something I think we can see again. Experienced in, obviously, you heard me mention the OCDF and the Ohio Attorney General's task force, so that's important. Probably most critical to everything is just this, the proven ability to inspire performance. And that's something that we all know, and the council certainly knows the importance of leadership, of stability, and the importance that we have in making sure that people are going to want to do what we want them to do. And that's a skill set that the chief certainly brings to us. Major sheriff's operations. Correction Center, as we know, court security officer, deputy sheriffs, and protective services. I'll just touch on these. We'll get to those. County Correction Center, just want you to know where we stand today. We stand at 644 officers. We're budgeted for 725. We have 43 corporals. We're a couple shy there. We just promoted 3 sergeants. We're 23 sergeants out of 26 budgeted, and lieutenants 7 out of 8. We just had a resignation for one of our lieutenants who's going to move on to another field. He came to us from the Ohio Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and he was a terrific team member here, but he's going to move on, so we'll be looking to replace that. And 68 of our officers are still going through some phase of their initial probationary and academy period. So it just speaks to the hiring efforts that we've done and been able to bring people on who truly want to contribute here and be part of our team. So that's significant.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question on that point? Are to the sheriff, are the 68 included in that 644?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes, they are.
Thank you.
We have one more hiring event next week, and the reason I want to bring this to your attention is because there was another one planned later in the year. And after assessing the effectiveness and the value of these hiring events, they certainly had a role and got our numbers up. But we're going to refocus the hiring efforts, just change something a little bit different, tweak it a little bit, and have some separate focus areas, more directed focus areas, so that we can maintain more of the staff. Every discipline has a degree of attrition, certainly as you onboard people, whether it's truck drivers or whatever it might be, airplane pilots. But if you can retain as many as possible, it helps our numbers overall, and it saves money in the long run. So that's the important thing for us to do, to make sure that we get the right people in so we don't have as much attrition from the training component. We have 3 job coaches. 1 resigned, so we had 4. We're budgeted for 4. We're looking for that. And the help that the job coaches provide to the correction officers in the facility is incredible. So we have realigned their hours. They now work the same hours as the platoon to provide whatever services that correction officer may need, coaching them along, even giving them support, which may not always be something that the corporal or sergeant or lieutenant is prepared to do, or certainly in a position to do, or maybe they're more comfortable with a job coach because that is their position, that's their role by definition. So that works out fairly well. So we're going to bring on an additional one. We had 2 fatalities in 2023. Coroner and medical examiner's report still out on those, but those were very sad events that took place. But they are going through the investigation on those, and we're waiting a coroner's report on those. So I thought it was important that you just know what those numbers look like, where we are today. GED program. GED program currently going on within the jail. We're going to have a graduation. We're going to have the family and other officials, yourselves can join in the Zoom and see when people graduate from it. I just think that it's important that during people stop here in part of their legal travels, during their time here to do something that's productive and beneficial, and that's something that we're going to continue to grow. It was already in place. Towards employment, we had a cohort graduate last month, and that's another thing. That's skill sets. Everyone who's in the county correctional facility is not going to go away for many years. Some folks are going to come right out. Some folks will come out a little bit longer. There's post-release control. The vast majority will wind up back in our community. So it's important that they have some kind of skill sets in some areas, at least learn how to prepare a resume, go to an interview, et cetera. Mail scanning program. This is critical because mail scanning allows us to save lives. By scanning the mail that goes in and making it electronic for the inmates, that's certainly one less medium that's being used to introduce fentanyl and other poisons into our facility. So that certainly saved lives, and that's going full tilt. That is a terrific program. We're looking at consolidating services. This is something internal, but I thought it's important that you know. We have a lot of people who are getting medical treatment for addiction, and consolidating those recipients into housing areas, common housing areas, so they're not peppered all over the entire facility. It has some benefits because whatever medical prescription they're using to aid them is not going to find its way to someone who shouldn't have it, because everyone in that pod's going to have it. So that's, in essence, what that is about. The camera project is expanding into the mental health unit, and I think that's important so that we can all lay eyes on things maybe before they develop, but certainly if we have some post-incident reconstruction, we have enhanced camera views in there. Obviously, there's a consolidation of a food preparation, and that's in accordance with our contract. And this was before you here recently. We've had a lot of discussion on it. We are moving forward, and there are some requirements in that contract that the provider must adhere to, or else there's penalties involved in that. So having the entire operation run by the provider and their staff puts the onus on them, and they can't point their finger anywhere. So that's part of the extension that we sought here recently. Working on a plan to use Medicare to reduce cost, and also people don't think about this a lot of times, but using Medicare as a tool for post-release control, certainly for reentry. And a lot of people don't think about that, but if you're receiving some kind of substance abuse treatment when you're in the facility, and when you walk out the door, if there's nothing in place, then you're going to just fall off. So here, there's a way to continue to keep people where they should be. Elevator modernization, 95% completed, doing really well on that. And as we know, the elevators are critical to getting food upstairs. Important for you to know that we are going to move forward on an enhanced narcotic detection screening program at our entry point, because it is important that we be as diligent as possible in saving lives and preventing the introduction of poison into our facility. And this is going to entail the deployment of a dog at that point. And then we're working on a process with county law, HR, and we're going to inform the unions of what that's going to be if the dog has an alert on an individual. And it's pretty much going to boil down to some kind of action at that point. But we know that that is absolutely going to save lives. Expected Mother's Housing Unit will be completed this Friday, and here's a few pictures of it. You see the colors are certainly a little bit different than they used to be. This is the officer area there. It's all set to go. They already have the video phones, everything in place. Everything is freshly painted, and everything's probably toilet needs some more cleaning there, but just you get the idea. It'll be a fresh area so that the young ladies who are expected have a comfortable place, a little more inviting. I thought I'd share this with you. This is important when we talk about staffing, deployment, and budgeting. In 2021, we had 547 emergency runs. As you can see, the breakdown between patrol car and EMS. In 22, it went up to 985. And year to date, we're at 833. The reason I present this to you today is because there is a program, there was some legislative action that took place, which allows the deployment of officers to do the hospital runs and also guard the inmate while at the hospital. In essence, the hospital details. So as we compare those numbers, there's certainly a price difference between the officers and the deputy sheriffs. So that's something that we're going to explore further as far as the implementation of that, and I'll certainly keep you posted on that. But that's a very good improvement to our operation because it is within the legislative guidelines, it's a cost saver, and it just makes sense. Court security officers, you know, they're responsible for operating the screening area at the Justice Center and others. They serve as a force multiplier. They support us in everything we do in the courthouses. And they're force protection because that's what they do. If we have a situation, we have a uniformed officer who's armed, trained, and employed by the Sheriff's Department who can respond as part of our force protection team. Deputy sheriffs, we are 100% flush. We are 180 deputy sheriffs, which is our allotted amount. And there's hundreds of law enforcement officers, I don't mean to exaggerate that, hundreds who would like to join us. That is an issue throughout America and certainly Northeast Ohio. Hiring and attracting members is a challenge as we hear all the woes across the country. Well, the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department is flush at our budgeted number. If our budgeted number was increased by X, we would attain that X within a matter of days. So I'm very proud to say that it is an organization which certainly stands for professionalism, respect, constitutional treatment, and is an attractive employer of choice in the law enforcement community. So I'm very proud of that at our size of an agency that we have that level of interest and attraction and benefit. So that's something that we'll be discussing later, but certainly it would be good to have that number raised. Everything is operating fairly well, and you're familiar with what our Ohio Revised Code mandated functions are. Certainly the courthouses, the transport, we know that. Those are some things we conduct. Sexual offender monitoring, sexual offender notification, and so on. Downtown Safety Patrol, it is now in its 8th week and doing very well received by downtown residents, visitors, stakeholders, everyone they come into contact to. And just a point of information, they have seized more firearms than any police department in Cuyahoga County, in Northeast Ohio, period. So it just shows that a group of individuals with the proper leadership and the proper guardrails in place can do terrific work. And that's exactly what's being done there. It's just one example. As we've discussed before, downtown is the core of our county. And everyone has family and friends and visitors who come downtown. That's why they need to protect downtown. So and not to say that we're not going to do other communities. That's going to come as we have some additional staffing, because we know we'll be able to have additional staffing. And we know that our police chiefs and mayors and managers throughout the county are asking and deserve support from the Sheriff's Department. And we'll get to that. Countless stakeholders, everyone's just giving them praise. Our officers are out, deputies are out there, whether it's walking 6th Street or 9th Street or wherever they may be, and have a lot of, they have had thousands of citizen contacts that are positive. success by any measure is certainly just a testament to the deputies. It really is, to their diligence and how well they do their job, how they treat people. Cadet program, just want to touch on this briefly. Cadet program, in essence, is a program available to any employee of the sheriff's department who is not a deputy sheriff, who wants to be a deputy sheriff. And if they're an employee who obviously is a good employee, there is a vetting process, and we would put them through the police academy, and they would have a opportunity, obviously, to be a deputy sheriff. May not be for everyone, but for those that have the interest and those that have the aptitude, it is a terrific opportunity for a correction officer, a protective service officer, or a professional staff, a member of our professional staff. And if you didn't hear it before, I don't favor the term civilian. I use the term professional staff. Everybody else in this agency has a title, whether it's deputy sheriff, correction officer, or protective service officer. Everyone else is professional staff, and that's why I refer to them. So any of those categories qualify for participation in the program if they desire to be a deputy sheriff. And that's something that we're moving forward on. There's a couple of legal things we're working through, and we'll get there, so. I kind of went over too quick. Protective service officers, currently nearly staffed, nearly fully staffed here. Obviously, force protection county buildings, all throughout the county, you see them in every county facility going, as is in this building. They're a force multiplier for us. If there's some kind of a protest, et cetera, it's always good to have the uniformed members there representing us. And they are very effective at doing what they do. You heard in the news a few weeks ago, they seized a few weapons that were going to be introduced into the Justice Center, and they were stopped at the entry point. So the program works. And those officers there, in fact, one of them was a court service officer. So those officers are doing their job, their diligence is there, and they're making the courthouse safer as well as the other buildings they work in. So I'm very proud of them for that. And they continuously deliver superior service throughout the county at all of our facilities that they staff. They will be increasing. We're going to add a couple of other posts at some other places at the domestic violence, the Family Justice Center, and at the Welcome Center for immigrants also. Any questions and that I can clarify? I'm available. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
I heard an issue with possibly not having enough vehicles for deputies to go out and do their jobs. I know of a couple that went to work and they couldn't go out because there was no car for them. Is there an issue with cars right now, or was it just a strange day, or how might that be?
Through the chair to the councilman, we're pretty tight on cars. I could see that being a day when we probably had multiple hospital details, so the car may have been gone. Kind of the exception, and normally doesn't happen like that, but we are very tight on cars. The margin is right there. It's single digits, sir. So I wouldn't say that did not happen. It might have happened. It's an anomaly, but it might have happened.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, thanks for being here today, Sheriff. What are there any capital improvement projects in the works for the current jail, or are we good at where we're at right now?
Through the chair to the councilman, there's a few of them. I know that the elevator is certainly one of them, and the expectant mothers wing is another one. I know that we're shifting pods as they go in and retrofit some of the doors. I know we did some work on the hinges. There's a few of them that are going on, and it just causes us to kind of just shift our population to other areas while they work in those pods.
Okay. Shifting gears just a little bit, what has your relationship been like with the county executive? Have you guys had a working relationship, or do you guys talk frequently, or what's that kind of been like?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's been a good relationship. I know I attend the biweekly executive staff meeting and provide any updates or questions they may have at that point, any concerns we may have.
Okay. And then lastly, how have things been? You mentioned potential program for transport of prisoners to and from emergency services for Metro Health. How has the relationship been with Metro Health, since you've been on board?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's been a working relationship as they have their challenges, just like any other facility or industry. There's a time that there may be a little short on staff and it may cause a slight delay. But there's times that we're short on deputies and officers also. So it does happen, but they certainly do strive to support us and work with us.
Do you have any concerns with respect to using COs to transport people to the hospital and all, or as far as shortages, or are you comfortable with that through that program?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm very comfortable with that, sir. Properly trained, managed, I think that our staff will do a great job there. I have no concerns with that whatsoever. Again, it's not for every officer. There will be a vetting process to select those officers to conduct that function, but it is another function which allows the officers to diversify their professional portfolio. Now, they can do this for a change of time and maybe something else down the road, but it is an opportunity. But I have the ultimate confidence in our staff to do what their job is, and their job is obviously care and custody and control.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, the county is somewhere in the process of revamping the way it collects data about the jail and getting a better handle on exactly what statistics you need and why you need them and what you're going to use them for. There's been a problem in the past that we've collected a fair amount of data, but without any clear sense of what that data is used for. Can you tell me where we're at in that process?
Through the chair to the councilman, 2 points on that, sir. First of all, the system currently in place is dated and it's kind of cobbled together, but we're able to extract data from it. We just have to identify what data we want and probably more importantly, what we're going to do with it. But there is a system there, it will work, and we do have a staff in place that knows how to properly manage and run that system. Again, it's a tight one, but whatever council may need, please let us know, and we will provide that. We are, part two is, we are going under RFP to purchase a new jail management system. That's something that has been needed for many years. I can tell you a personal experience in the past 5 years that we were given a date that it would be purchased and in place and up and running and speaking to other systems and other governmental entities, et cetera, and never came through. So here we are moving forward on that, and I know that the correctional staff is spearheading that.
So, has the RFP been issued, or is that still coming?
I believe it's coming, sir.
Okay. Second question is do you have any actions in place that you think going forward can help us reduce the jail population below where it currently stands?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think that the optimization of the centralized booking project is one that will help that, because we're getting people in, we're evaluating where they need to be, providing what they need, and moving in that direction. I know there's a lot of talk with the judges, and we've had discussions, certainly with the common pleas judges as well as the municipal judges. So I think that there's something there, but I think that the catalyst for that and the driver for that will be the centralized booking project, which will speed all that up.
And, Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, where do we stand on bail reform? Are we making any progress on that, or is that kind of stuck, or are we hampered by state restrictions, or tell me where we are on that?
Through the chair to the council, and bail reform is something that I believe is something that's ongoing, that I know that the judges and prosecutors go through, and sometimes we know that it's working in this sense. We have investigators and police officers complain that people are being released who probably shouldn't. In essence, hey, they arrested him yesterday, the guy's already out. However, the proposition is those that are properly charged, who are high-level offenders, are not being released. They are where they should be and with the appropriate bail. Those low-level offenders who can get out are being released. Sometimes I think the law enforcement gets a little comfortable with, he's in jail on Friday, he'll be there on Monday. It's not always the case.
Thank you.
Through the chair to the sheriff, just wanted a little bit more explanation on tight on cars. So does that mean that we need more in our fleet, or sometimes we have more officers or correction officers and not enough cars available, or the reverse?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, two things, just clarify, you said title and cars?
You said tight on cars.
Oh, tight on cars, yes. Yes, we probably, it's the ordering process is what it is. There's no way to really speed that up much, but there is a process in place. Could we use a few more? Can always use a few more, particularly as we look at getting deputies out. And like in this example, if we have more hospital details, we might have to have more cars available. So certainly as we move forward, even with this program, we are going to need vehicles for transporting. So I'd like to have a little bit larger margin of error. One car accident, one car breaks down, you have a few of those, now you're really in a pickle. So I'd like to certainly increase that.
Do we maintain our own cars?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the county motor vehicle maintenance maintains the vehicles for us.
So what's the number that we have in our fleet now?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I don't have that right now, I have to get that to you.
And the order you're processing, more than one or just a few more?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I know we have an order in for 10, and I know that the projection is in the fall by the end of the year, and everyone has been short, so that's understandable. It's not the county on that, it's the providers.
How is that paid for? Out of your budget?
I believe, through the chair to the councilwoman, I think that's his general fund.
Thank you.
Sheriff, what happened to X jail?
Councilwoman, the ex-jail project, from what I recall, it just kind of folded. I don't have all the details.
Okay.
I know it was going to go forward, and I think that one just kind of imploded and didn't have the support it should have from the
For the
company.
committee, that was supposed to be the answer to computerizing the jail. Have you had an opportunity to review any of the meetings with the Justice Center Jail Committee going back, almost 5 years? We have those available. We spoke before you were confirmed, and I know you're busy, but you should at least try and review those because there's valuable information in there. Baked into a new jail is a new computer system. So I don't know how wise it is right now to go out on an RFP on a computer system that, unless it can be transferred over to the new facility, and coming off the heels of X-Jail, which was next to our previous IT debacles, not well received by the users or the taxpayers for their money. So I would highly recommend that, because within the new jail, there's baked in a lot of good things that I don't think many people realize. What's a job coach?
Job coach just assists the officers, not only just job-related duties, but they might have an HR issue. They may have an issue with childcare. It could be a medical issue. So how do you work through the process? How do I access HR? Some are totally unfamiliar with that process. Some people have never been employed anywhere. So they help them with those nuances of working in the employment system.
So it's
Not
like
just the nuts and bolts, but also
HR extension, kind of?
kind of an extension, kind of a coach, yes.
Okay. Do we still use Tri-C on the de-escalation? Do we send our newer officers over there for classes on de-escalation?
Yes, sir, as part of the training academy, yes.
Okay. Because there's an extra for our, and I know, I'm pretty sure everybody's gone through it, but as part of the new recruits that go through that.
Absolutely, sure. That's part of
Okay.
the whole program.
It's interesting you said that there would be, if you had X to fill new deputies, they'd be filled tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Why can't Cleveland do that?
Sir, that is that's,
Having come from Cleveland, and now you're on the good side.
I
And
appreciate
nobody's
that, sir.
listening, so you can be honest.
Yeah, okay. So that's probably a series of issues there that, for them to work through. And I am unsure what the recruitment strategy is there today, so I probably could not.
Is the pay commensurate, or
It's
is,
close. There's a current proposition that's going to elevate it, but it's close. We are a little bit higher, but I don't think it's that because all officers are making significantly more than that based on overtime, so.
you recently attended the Safety Committee in Cleveland. I reviewed that. What did you get out of that?
We are in a partnership along with the Highway Patrol, the Marshal Service. It's a team effort. Cleveland being the largest city in the county and being the largest police department in the county, to support some of their efforts because they're also, a lot of the bad guys they deal with are the bad guys that deal in the rest of these suburbs and municipalities around here, including outside the county. So it's important that we certainly share the information and share the enforcement effort, including outside the county. There's a lot that goes on that people don't realize outside of the county, and I can tell you from my previous life, how we had visibility on how much took place outside of the city, some outside the county, but outside of the city of Cleveland. So there's significant activity, and it ties back to those characters.
Right. You say we're in a partnership. Is there an MOU or?
No, sir. No, sir. It's just right thing to do. If they're going to have a warrant sweep 2 weeks from now, we participate. What do we want? Give us some warrants. We'll do some work on it, and we'll, on the day of execution, we'll bring in a SWAT team. We'll help out. So will the FBI. So will the marshals, depending where we are, what the nearby city is, whether it's Parma or we reach out to Webb, all kind of jumping together in those kind of collaborative efforts.
How many officers have we put into the downtown patrols and cars?
8 deputies, 1 sergeant, and 2 canines.
And how many extra has Cleveland put in?
The downtown services unit, I think, has about 26 members.
No, extra.
They're at a deficit. They were supposed to be 45, and they're down in the low 20s. I don't think they're adding to that, sir.
Are you how much is this costing us per week?
I don't have that number readily available. I could crunch it up, sir. It's, again, 8 deputies, 1 sergeant, 2 canines.
Substantial.
Yes.
Is that in your budget coming up?
It is.
But we're down deputies, but we're putting those on the streets of Cleveland. Problem I see there, and I understand this is where the action is. We have other suburbs that are some are already calling.
We will be there, sir. No, we're not down deputies. We're full at 180. Just a little additional background on that. When I left here, when I was previously deputy sheriff, I left here 29 and a half years ago, the magic number was 180. And at that time, we had 160. So 29 and a half years later, I walk in, the magic number is still 180, and we were at 172 when I came back. Now we're at 180. That number is a number that was crafted by someone 40, 45 years ago when many of the functions of today did not exist. The electronic monitoring, the sexual offender notification, the Gene and the Hunter, many of these functions didn't exist. It was just kind of the core of the ORC mandated functions. So that's why that number is certainly shy of what we need for true 21st century operation.
During the safety committee, one of the council people, I found it odd. He said, while saying you guys were doing a good job, which you are, that he wanted to see more of you down there. I'm wondering why that's not being asked of his own police chief.
I'm sure they're having those discussions, sir, and I know they do make the requests at city council. I've sat many of those, and they always make the request for additional law enforcement, certainly police in their wards, and that's something that I would treat kind of like if another municipality asked us that. Let's say Rocky River, let's say Maple Heights said, hey, we have an issue with this. If Middlebrook Heights said they had an issue with cars being stolen from dealerships and needed some extra assistance, then we would send them a group, kind of like the Downtown Safety Patrol, to focus on that for a period of time.
Have you been part of the discussions with the jail contract with Cleveland?
We had some discussion on that today, and there is a meeting on Thursday specifically about that, sir.
Well, we're 8 weeks deep into this and doing Cleveland's job for them with other partners, which I understand, but this has been going on for years. So we're at a point where, I think the pin's going to get pulled. And I need to see cooperation from Cleveland.
Understood.
And I don't know, and I've told the administration this, they're not moving as fast as I would like. They know that. And from your side, having been over there and now you're over here, I'd expect you to take the reins on this thing and jump in there with both feet and get it done. Because other partners within the jail are paying their fair share. Cleveland is not, has not, and I think they're obfuscating from what needs to be done.
Understood, sir. I do say they do participate in the task forces, so there are Cleveland detectives on the FBI task force, the ATF task force, the Marshals task force, DEA task force, that we all benefit from as a committed effort.
Right. Well, as usual, and I've said it from this chair, and I'll continue to say it, we're a partner with all of our communities as best we can. We're not here to make money, but we're damn sure not here to lose money. And we have lost tons of money on this Cleveland contract. Granted, partially our fault, but now it needs to be fixed. And now that they're seeing the fruits of our labors, I would hope that that brings them to the table, because it is important what you're doing down there. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Scale of A, B, C, D, F, where are we at with the jail?
Jail, wow.
In your eyes.
B plus. We have a terrific management team there.
I'm
Our
glad
numbers
you
are going
didn't
up.
say A.
B plus or B plus, as the adage I always use is 3 degrees off center. We're going to get that ship back on course. Correctional staff there is doing super. Chief Soltis and the wardens are really straightening this ship up, and there's a few things they're working on.
Well, I apologize to have you in so early. I know you're just getting your feet wet, but I thought it important we just start the process of watching what's going on, and on the horizon, hopefully a new jail out there. We're going to be discussing diversion next, and obviously those two are important to one another. So as we move forward, are there any further questions for the sheriff? Well, sir, thank you so much. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilman.
Now we have a discussion on the diversion center. I had requested any board members. I don't know if there are any board members here. And Brandy, I know you're going to be presenting.
Good afternoon, council members. How are you?
Are there any board members here?
There is today. There is our vice chair, Crystal Bryant, who used to work for the county, actually, before she went to a couple places I'm sure to speak of. And we also have Jacoya. Jacoya works in our witness victim office, and she's not a formal board member, but she's been supporting the board and engaged with the board just recently, so we're looking forward to continuing to work with her. She's in the audience. And I think that that's it for board members. I did reach out to them as requested on Friday morning, but I think with scheduling.
Well, before you start, Brandy, Crystal, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Councilman.
I really, this is just informational, and we're just, again, getting our feet wet as we go into discussions on our budget, and most importantly, moving forward on a jail, and, where the location should be for a diversion center and proximity to courthouse, jail, and whatnot. I know there's a lot of psychology involved there, but I wanted to just know from you as a board member, what are you seeing? What is working? What's not working? What can we help you with?
So obviously the Diversion Center is a newer concept for Cuyahoga County. I think what has been working is the collaborative efforts of the entire county and its partners in making changes and adaptation when you're creating a hypothesis and you're bringing it into a county. So we haven't been able to see the numbers and the usage of the diversion center that we would like to. And so again, the collaborative efforts amongst partners and various agencies to make adaptations in terms of criteria has been what is working. The adaptation of the City of Cleveland Police Department in terms of their policies and how they train up their officers to leverage the diversion center is slowly working. working, but the policies have been changed to make sure they at least are able to utilize it, which is a huge difference from the previous administration. So we're seeing those changes. We obviously would like to see it overutilized, and then there are also some efforts to look at what additional adaptations in partnership with the Diversion Center may work a little bit better. So I can't think of the actual name at this moment because I didn't expect to have to say any words, but I know there's some work and collaborative efforts around utilizing teams, teams that are not police departments, and how we refer into the Diversion Center as well. And I think all those things will serve as benefits to this particular project.
Thank you. Any questions for Crystal? Thank you, Crystal, for being here. Crystal, Mr. Tuma
I'm sorry.
is his last second request, as
Wait,
usual.
just before the buzzer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, could you just give an example? You said compared to prior administration, some things that have changed. Could you just give a concrete example or two as to what it is that's changed? Because I think that's a good thing.
Sure. So there was an issue originally with cell phones, and the previous administration's, City of Cleveland's administration has stated that the officers would not be allowed to use their personal cell phones, and so they were going to make referrals into the diversion center that served as a barrier. And so immediately, well, not immediately, but very quickly into this new administration, they were able to reverse that policy, take a look at it, and state that that wasn't an issue, and if it was a barrier for them, then they can also provide cell phones. I can't that may not be exactly what happened, but that's a tangible, broad example of one of the initial barriers, because the whole goal was for the City of Cleveland's police department to leverage this. And while we love the entire Cuyahoga County and want the support of every single municipality, it was originally focused on the City of Cleveland for numerous issues, including some that was going on with the jail at the time. So that's been one positive that I can remember. But I'm getting older, so don't quote me on it.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's good to hear, and bring some common sense to the matter. I think helps, and that's what it sounds like happened there. And better opportunity to use the diversion center for people who need it. So, all right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, members of council.
Thank you, Crystal.
And then, Chairman, we also have in the audience, which I speak to in my presentation I have here, Scott Osecki, as you guys know, the president for the Adams Board. They are, we contract with them and others for the operations of the center, but just wanted to acknowledge, because he does participate in the board meetings, but he's not a board member.
Brad, thanks for being here. We might have questions for you later after Brandy. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Carney, what percentage of the people using the diversion center are residents of the city of Cleveland?
Residents of the city, I don't have that number offhand. I do have it available though, so I'm happy to provide it to you following this this meeting. I receive regular metrics for this and study them, but I don't know that particular answer offhand. Happy to get it.
And is there a positive trend on use of the diversion center by people who would otherwise go to jail, or are we not seeing that yet?
Sure, I'm happy to get into a presentation. I'll move through it fairly quickly for the sake of brevity for all, but regarding use of the center, overall this year, has really been positive use of the center. We've seen in almost all the priority areas, so length of stay, average length of stay, the daily referrals, the daily census within the center, the use of police officers. That one's a little lower using the center. Those have all increased, and many of them more than twofold this year, so it's really been a good year and finally things taking off. You know, regarding the specific to jail, as Ms. Bryant said, you know, our numbers still aren't where we'd like to see them as far as police department usage. We're not only requiring that police drop off, as many of you know, individuals, but instead we're operating like a crisis center where anyone can use anyone's able to come and to use the facility. But we do see, and there continues to be trends where when a police department uses the center, they continue to use the center, or that individual police officer use the center, so that's a positive. And I would also argue that, sometimes it doesn't take a crime, and it took some time to, wave through this, I guess, but it doesn't take a crime to ultimately stop something that could have been down the line jail. Someone could end up in jail down the line, and instead by treating someone's mental illness and or addiction, now we're able to stop what would have been in our jail. So there are benefits that are less tangible to measure, or less easy to measure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Brandy, let's get
Okay.
through yours and we'll have
I
questions
wasn't
after.
sure, Chairman, exactly what you were looking for, so I'll just go through a couple of them pretty quickly, and
Yeah,
then you can
this
ask.
was clearly just informational, but
Yeah.
I mean, let's be frank, it's not working. And like we wanted to. It's probably not located in the operable place. And I'm sure we'll be addressing those as we move forward. It's not doing what we wanted to do specifically with jail population. There has to be more collaborative with the police departments, which we really don't have. And in a desperate attempt to bump up the numbers, we opened it up to anybody and their brother that wanted to come in, which wasn't its intended purpose, which is fine when you're affording people a place to go. But, I personally think that we jumped the gun here. There were some individuals on the Justice Center Jail Committee that were using this as a wedge to threaten no votes to stop the jail process because of promises from the administration on diversion, which actually weren't true. The administration was moving forward on diversion. But I think we needed more time to put a plan together that would make sense for everybody, and I don't think we did that. And here we are with obvious realities that something different has to be done, and those are questions for later. But where are we at now? What are we seeing? I really want to talk to the board, Mr. Oseki, maybe at a different time. I know there's negotiations from the Adams Board. There seems to be an issue with management, and I think their input, and I'm guessing, hasn't been as much as it should be. So I think that's a board question, and trying to get a plan together as we move forward, specifically with the new jail in mind, as to what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But right now, where are we at? What do you see?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. And a couple of these, or most of those questions or items that you brought up, I'll raise throughout the presentation. Yeah. Brandy Carney, Director of Public Safety and Justice for the county, also responsible for the opioid funding or funds that we received. So that includes the Diversion Center project and others. Do I flip this? Oh, I'm waiting for somebody else. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Again, presentation, just briefly talk about the purpose and the operations of the center. Most of you in front of me, I've been in front of a couple times on this. I'm not sure, Mr. Kelly. And then I wanted to go through a couple of the data, the things I spoke about earlier, which has been pretty consistent, particularly over the last year, as was expected, and the status of the current services and future steps. So just some general background that we have. Diversion Center, it is located on East 55th Street. We do not own the building. Oriana House actually owns the building. As many of you remember, we wanted to find something that was centrally located within the county. It's available to any agency within the county, whether it be police, families, whoever can use it. It's open 24/7, 365 for individuals. We do have a single site. There's talk in the past about multiple sites, which to your comment earlier, Councilman Gallagher, regarding on the jail site, that could be something that happens, different sites throughout the county. But again, one site, and we wanted to make sure it was as centrally located as possible. It is completely voluntary. There's different models of diversion centers. There's pre-arrest, there's post-arrest, there's secure, there's not. And they all operate very differently. I shouldn't say very, but they all operate differently. And this is a completely voluntary center. And while the maximum stay is 9 days for any individual, that's the longest they stay, usually 5 days is the day that, for the services we provide on site, which are detox services for substance use disorder and for mental illness stabilization services, the target, or usually what's anticipated, it'll be about a 5-day stay for individuals, assuming that they stay on the recommended length. Again, the purpose of the center, I'm just going to hit on a couple of these. I talked about mental illness and addiction support services. As you alluded to earlier, Councilman Gallagher, the primary purpose still is, I would say, for the diversion center, but particularly when we opened, and that entire time was for reduction in jail, individuals in the jail, and or keeping people out of the criminal justice system. So pre-arrest diversion allows individuals to go to, even in lieu of a crime, to go to the diversion center rather than once you get into the criminal justice system, as many of you know, sometimes then once you're in, you're in. So that's the goal. As I mentioned before, there's some statistics that come with that aren't easy to reflect, things that you might have stopped by providing services to an individual right now. So even if they didn't commit a crime, as I mentioned earlier, by them getting the help and the treatment they need in this environment, we might have, prevented something from the future to happening. But we still prioritize criminal justice and work with the police departments as the contract. I would add that over the course of the last approximately 2 years, we've worked with, and Adams through their contract and marketing and training have worked with all the police departments in the county to let them know about the center. But as many of you can imagine, police every day hear about new things and new resources that they have. And there's a lot of different police throughout the county. There's a lot of different agencies. And so really that continued message is either that or a positive story that they know of is really what we've seen that makes police increase their usage of the center. And so my goal moving forward is to have staff go out to each individual police agency and update their departmental notices so that so X police agency has their own policy on diversion. Not a countywide policy, it's very specific to them. That's been something that's really worked well with our high-risk domestic violence group with police officers. And so that's my goal moving forward, or one of them, I should say. Quickly, the service providers that we currently have that are contracted is the Adams Board, as I mentioned, for crisis intervention training, which is training for the police departments, as well as they're the lead agency on the contract. And they subcontract then with Frontline and Oriana House. We have a Frontline, which is a 24/7, 365 hotline number. The reason for that hotline is so that when we were building this and putting this together, we heard other successful stories that, you do not want an officer to show up at the diversion center and the person they're not supposed to be there. They're supposed to go to the ED, or maybe it's better served that they do outpatient services with a mobile crisis team call out. Once they're there and you got to send them away and take them somewhere else, it's very likely you might not have them come back. You lose that opportunity. And so their services provide triaging services for that caller. So they recommend, yes, take that individual, whether it's someone personally calling or calling on behalf of someone else or law enforcement. If they are going to go to the diversion center and be accepted, Frontline is the one who recommends that for the individual. I'm just going to flip through quickly, just some pictures of the center. We did, at the beginning of the project, the building was there, it was vacated, which was great. It was zoned appropriately, so we got to move pretty quickly. But we did do some upkeeps to the rooms and the site itself. Important here, we have a very large, diverse staff there, which is really great. We have, Oriana House has University Hospital subcontracted to provide some of the medical on-site services, having a psychiatrist on-site at the center. She's been there since the beginning. Dr. Testa is phenomenal. Really, really great for the program. LPNs, RNs, we have health specialists, we have recovery coaches, peer support, which are individuals with used experience or past experience, which is really great. Someone in that position that is trying to get better and might have an addiction. It's nice when they can feel comfortable around someone or comfortable that's been in their shoes before and been a success story. Certifications, we're certified by the state Mental Health and Addiction Board. Just adding that, if you guys recall, this was the first in the state, so there was no single certification that met the Diversion Center. That's something that we continue to work for. Adams has been extremely involved in that process as well as others, but they've really done a great job making sure we figure this out together with the state so we can move forward. Amenities, group therapy rooms, a recreation area, smoking area. It might sound, it's outside, might sound a little crazy, but we did our research on this too, but many people from the very beginning, the one thing, if they couldn't have their cigarettes, they were out of there. So sometimes you can't win with all the vices, so we do allow smoking on site outside. There are, again, additional pictures. We tried to redo the back so it looks nice, somewhere for them to sit outside. This is yay, my bubble. Is it working? I've heard a number of people say that it's not working lately. While I understand where people are coming from, there's different perspective. I would say particularly this year, there's been a lot of successes. And I can 100% say that it's really actually shocking. I've never heard someone like a client who's gone to the center complain about like the operations or the services that they received, which is pretty phenomenal. It's always been great services on site. Yes, we would like police officers to use the center more, understandably, and increase population. We'd like to take people from the jail or never have them go to the jail and increase those numbers of beds, but all of those numbers continue to increase. And going into this project, I can tell you that other successful centers all said it would take about 3 years to build what you're trying to do. You know, particularly for police, we're trying to change culture, right? So for 30 years, maybe, someone commits a small crime or they interact with someone. Once they put them in their car, they're taking them to jail. So that's a culture change that takes a long time to develop. I promise, almost done. The call center, I mentioned, number of calls. So 2021, when we first opened, under 300 calls. All of 22 was about 1,300 calls. And to date, we have about that same number of calls to our call center. So that's as of July 31st of this year. So halfway in, we have about the same amount of calls that we had last year. The calls from police departments, I think actually, and I apologize, it's actually 22% of the calls that are from the call center are from the police departments, and 78 are from community members, self referrals and agency referrals. But again, just showing that the continued increase with a large spike this year. The next one, there we go, sorry. The operations of the center for intakes of individuals for admissions. The first year, we had 149 individuals that were completed the intake process and admissions process and through the center. All of 2022, we were at 679. 2023 to date, and this is again only July, as of July, we were 534. So that's a lot of individuals. I'd like to see it higher, but that's a lot of individuals that have received these services that potentially change their long-term trajectory and their life, without a doubt. The average length of stay. This is important that, and this has grown throughout time, but it's been pretty consistent here. As I mentioned before, people can stay up to 9 days, but that wasn't anticipated to be the common number. And so the 5 days tells tells us a lot. These individuals, once they get there, they're feeling supported many times, and we have the data to show that an individual might come to the center and leave after one day, but when they come back, they might stay 2 or 3 days, and then they might stay, and then they stay for their whole treatment. So for a center, the average length of stay is averaging about 5%, which is, or excuse me, 5 days, which is really great. Finally, the daily census, just as I mentioned, it continues to grow. We'd like to grow a little faster, particularly with law enforcement. But there, the summer, there was, 30 to 40 people in the center when I get weekly stats for the center, and I think it was common to have 35, 32. So there's growth. Those numbers, when we started were under 10 for many, many months. So it's working, and I myself personally hear it from more individuals now just recently than I have in quite some time about what it is and interest in the center. My last slide I have here, this woman, pretty amazing. She said I had interacted with her, and she said, she has a really unfortunate story that's hers to share, but I would just say, she said she's been into a lot of different centers and throughout her life, and they've been really challenging, but the Diversion Center, she didn't even know I had anything to do with it. She brought it up to me. She said, just made me feel so good and supportive, and she was telling me about it, so it was really good experience to have. The current status of the program is my contract currently is up, and that again is a contract with the Adams Board, and then they subcontract with Oriana House and Frontline. That ends December 31st of this year. So earlier this year, we mentioned to everybody, we were putting out an RFP for the services. That RFP did go out. That RFP recently closed, and so that's where we are with the RFP process. I would add that some of you may know that recently there was an announcement made from the Adams Board that they will be opening a crisis center. Metro Health is the operator of the center. The location, they'll lease a St. Vincent location, the hospital, which many of you might remember. We talked about that as a site for the diversion center, but it wasn't an option at the time. Because of all this, and as I said, the Diversion Center is currently operating as a crisis center. Those are the services we're providing because it's not solely criminal justice. So we have been in discussions. There's not more than that that I can say at this point, but we want to make sure that collaborative efforts come together and decide, what works best, what's the most efficient and effective way to provide these services without being duplicative or, spend unnecessary funding. So that's what we're working through now, Councilman.
How many replies did you get to the RFP?
One.
Who was that?
Am I allowed to say? Oh, yeah, it's open. Oriana House.
Questions for Brandy? Zuma.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you for being here today. Through the chair, so it sounds to me like your overall assessment of where we're at with the Diversion Center, it sounds to me like you have a more positive outlook on it than our chairman is. So what's the difference of opinion here? In your opinion, what do you think is the difference between what Mr. Gallagher put forth and then what you presented to us here?
I think through the chairman to the councilman, I would say that this year has really seen pretty significant growth and strides. And I haven't been in front of this committee for some time, I would say. And so I would say that's one, and that's just not one area, that's many. And separately, I would say the law enforcement and the criminal justice piece is challenging. It's the most challenging. As I mentioned, it's changing culture. But I too would like to see those numbers grow much larger. But I really feel like it's finally, I can feel it starting to move, and it's challenging because it does take some time. But that's where I see things at.
Do you, just through the chair, what steps has your office taken with respect to reaching out to departments and municipalities?
So the contract that I currently have with the Adams Board is for crisis intervention training, and they are the entity that provides the marketing, the notification, the awareness to the police departments. So we even last year, we just did a contract renewal for 1 year because we knew the new administration was coming in. However, the one piece that I actually added an additional page for in the contract was to very specifically like lay out all of these efforts to get into police departments. And they had met with all the police departments. They have a monthly law enforcement training. They've gone to a lot of different roll calls. They go to roll calls. So they're doing those for all the different departments, but that was something I focused on then. And as I mentioned, I want to draw down into like individual plans for each agency now.
And my last question here is there a concern with respect to what the Adams Board plans are with backing out of this and doing their own thing with Metro Health, as far as, like you said, either duplication of services, or if they're handling operations like that, providing the PR, what have you, is there a concern that's with them dropping out of what we're doing, you'll lose people for the center?
Through the chairman to the councilman, the diversion center, again, we're operating as a criminal, or as a crisis center. That's why we're meeting and talking now to see if there's opportunities to work together moving forward so we're not duplicating services. I'll just leave it at that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, sir?
No, well, I guess specifically, is there a concern on your part that the Adams Board not participating in this particular diversion center? Is there a concern that, you'll lose potential outreach to departments and things like that?
I would say, again, we paid for those trainers. So we pay for 3 full-time trainers for the Adams Board to do this outreach we're talking about with police. But I don't have a concern in that the current center or operating of the center can continue to move forward. They were extremely valuable when we first opened the center, as I mentioned, with OMAS and with some of the certifications. Just as the entity, Adams Board, they're very extremely helpful. But if they're not part of the center, I have no concerns about us still not being able to move forward and operate as we have.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That answered it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It took twice.
To back up on Mr. Tuma's question, what we have here is not a diversion center, is my concern. Diversion in definition is to divert people from the courts, going to jail, and into psychological mental health services. What we have is a mental health services building disguised as a diversion center, and that's not anybody's fault. We need buy-in from the police unions, the administrations of various cities, and the psychology behind all of this, and again, this is for a bigger, broader question another day, is probably the answer to the diversion center and having it used as it's supposed to be used is to have 24/7 booking, which I've been saying now for over 5 years. If you don't have 24/7 booking, that's where you're going to capture these folks. And I hate to use the word capture, but you're going to, when they go to 24/7 booking, they're going to have an attorney. They're going to have an option. Do you want to get booked or do you want to go to diversion?
So
Your choice. Right now, the police officers don't have the time, I get it, to go down to 55th and have somebody change their mind, and then now we got to go back downtown. It's got to be, and again, there's a psychology behind this, and Sheriff, the committee went through all of this, and it's on tape, and it makes complete sense. And I'm going to bring those people in for the next meeting so they can go over it again and tell us exactly what we're missing here.
Can I briefly respond to that,
Sure.
Councilman? So I would say, it's becoming the norm. So if you guys know, the Franklin County just opened up a crisis diversion center. Lucas County opened up a crisis diversion center. So that's becoming the norm because, again, as I mentioned before, there's different types and different models, but ultimately these are the same group of people that we're trying to help with services. And so rather than piecemeal beds.
Correct.
Your comment, I completely agree in that that's central booking and things working and getting people to the place that they need to go to, including the diversion center or whatever it is getting people through the system on that end. So I agree with your comment with respect to that. But again, the different centers are significant. So a secure center versus a voluntary center. You know, a secure center has, is much more involved and works with the court system rather than a voluntary center where it's truly up to the police officer if they take them there and or the individual to stay.
Well, it sounds to me like St. Vincent's with the Adams Board is going to be taken care of. One aspect of that, the court aspect is what I'm concerned with, because this is justice and safety. And the justice partners are none too happy with the way this has unfolded. And I understand it, but unfortunately, they were part of pushing this to get this open. So you don't hear a lot from them, and that I also get. But what I want to do is as we move forward on the jail, what's the most practical thing to do with the diversion center? Because then you also have the concerns of transportation, and that plays to Ms. Simon and her concerns. So we're trying to fit the round peg in the square hole here, but it's been done before, as you said. It's been successful in other places. And once again, I hate to tell everybody in the world that Cuyahoga County is no different than anywhere else where this does work. But it has to be done properly, and it can't be forced. And the police have to have the buy-in, the administrations have to have the buy-in, and we have to work as one. That's not happening right now. We have all kinds of things, many balls that we're juggling, and what really, in reality, we need to juggle one.
I agree, collaborative
And even in
effort.
that, we're not very good. So we got to get better at juggling one ball.
I think we, to the chairman, I agree. This is a collaborative effort moving forward. There's a lot of different ways it could go. Let's everybody, you know, we need to get together and figure this out together so that we're most efficient moving forward for this space for individuals.
Right.
Just-
And again, and once again, without 24/7 booking, I don't think it works. And I don't think there's any place out there where it will work without 24/7 booking, because that's the place where we all come together to decide what we're going to do with this individual, or the individual decides what they want to do. And that was the purpose of diversion, to divert you, not from society, from the justice system in jail. And that's where I see the failure. But we've got a couple of years to work on this. You know, we're not kicking the can down the road, which is good. We're learning from our mistakes, which is even better. And I'm certain we're going to be making more and more mistakes that we can learn from. But as we move forward, we're going to come to a point to make a decision. And when we get there, I want to make sure that that's the right decision. And I'm hopeful that we'll get there.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Chairman.
When you said just a couple of minutes ago that the Justice Center partners aren't happy, can you tell me which Justice Center partners you're referring to and what it is that they're not happy about?
Let me put it this way. There came a period of time, and I don't want to call anybody out, but as I said earlier, the diversion center was being used as a wedge in that committee of 11 or 12 or whatever we were in, where you only needed, I believe, 2 or 3 votes to stall progress. And out of nowhere, when we were about ready to move on the jail, certain partners in that committee used this as a wedge to stop a vote on moving forward with the jail, because the administration, in their words, lied to them on moving forward with a diversion center, at which point I called the administration. And Armin Budish told me, he goes, Mike, I'm shocked. Those very people were sitting in my office just this week on this issue, and we laid out what we're going to do. So it became a gamesmanship thing. But the purpose for diversion was to alleviate the pressure on the jail. So that's where it comes to. So until the 24/7 booking, which we have to have buy-in from the courts, which right now we don't, because we need a judge available 24 hours, 7 days a week. And then that's going to work in concert with the booking system. Again, providing not only justice, but attorneys, and what are we going to do with that person? Can we divert them to a center that's going to help them? Or are we going to book them? At which point your numbers go up in the jail. I'd prefer the numbers go up in the diversion center. So that's the nexus that we need that we don't have right now. So you're not going to see them here complaining, but I know they're upset about it, as I'm upset about it. And it's not everybody, it's only a select few that played their games. That cost the taxpayers of Cuyahoga County over $100 extra million, which is another reason you don't see them here complaining. Because they made that very clear on what their games have cost us here. So that's why. So throw them under the bus, I don't want to do that. They've thrown us under the bus enough. I'd rather two wrongs don't make a right. But we'll fix it. I'm confident we can fix it. So Brandy, thank you very much for your time and look forward to getting this thing on the road fixed and proper.
We're getting there.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Any miscellaneous?